Hello again, Struckweb. Today I'm bringing you another build video for Warhammer Chaosbane, and this one is for the Mage class Elontir. It's another rework of an old video of mine. It's Ulthuan's Bunker 2.0 Mage build. You can see in the description below of the video the timestamps for the skills, god skills, gear and gameplay segments. I've done another 2-in-1 build video where I'm showing you two types of setups for the skills and the god skills. On my website you can also see information about this, including one extra setup, which was the old one when we had only the website version. So you're seeing a version me using arcane secrets as a passive, a more standard damage and HP setup in the blessings, but then there's also another one which is using counter spell, a passive that gives you damage based on how much counter attack damage you've got in your items, and for that one I've included 4 items blessed with counter attack damage. Keep in mind that my counter-attack counter-spell damage was not completely optimized. I was missing counter-attack damage in a majority of my items. Let's say 5 items were either legacy or didn't have any counter-attack damage, and the legacy item has much less counter-attack damage than a non-legacy item. And I think if I boost my gear, if I get better items, instead of just 77% damage from the counterattack damage, I could probably get over 100% and still get even more damage. I think overall the builds are kind of equal. Maybe without the counter spell I was getting around 16 million highest hits. With this one I was getting like 14 million highest hits, so the difference is just 2 mil. But overall I think this one seems to work better. So let's show you the god skills for the regular one and then the counter spell one. So here are the god skills for the more standard setup, the one that doesn't use the counter attack based gear blessings. And this one only uses the first god skill tree, so even people who do not own the god skills DLC should be able to have an easy way of getting this to work. First of all, on my website I've got another version of this which does not include Fortress of Willpower, and that other version is kind of like this. That's the other version. But you can see with this version we're not taking this, meaning we are losing 15% damage, and damage reduction is still the same. That's why I decided to, instead of, because we're not using Arcane Secrets Mastered. Even with that version I was not using Arcane Secrets Mastered. You can see on my website what the skills were for this one. So I decided to just go and remove all those points, and you can see what we're losing. We're losing 12% damage, 10% damage over time, 5% armor piercing, 8% bonus damage to champions. But what we are gaining is, first we're gaining 10 armor piercing and 8 damage, and that's just with 3 points. Then we're getting another 11% damage and 30% crit damage, and then we're getting another 3% damage, or whatever else you might want to spend the last point on. It's entirely up to you. You can get HP, you can get more damage from another place, but yeah, that's kind of how it is. I mean, if you don't need this extra 15% damage, which I think you need it, you could get 8% damage to champions, but it's not worth it. This is better because that's damage against everything. So this seems to be an amazing way to make the build work. Mind you, the recorded footage for the standard setup was without this. It was with the other skills setup. So that's pretty clear. Hope it's good. Hope you like it. Now let's move on to the skills. And here are the skills for this setup. After this I will show you the god skills and the skills for the other setup, so you have them one after the other instead of just splitting god skills and then the skills. This time it's gonna be done differently. So Yes, you can see we're not using padded armor, which my other setup was using. So the differences in the skills between this and the one on my website would be we're using Fortress of Willpower Superior here, and here instead of Action Mastery we're using padded armor, which is this skill. So instead of doing that, now we're doing it slightly differently, and we're upgrading this for 15% damage, and then we're upgrading our fire damage for another 20% over here. That means this would do more damage, and this would do more damage when it's the fire. It's taking turns. Magic fire, magic fire, magic fire. So the fire would be doing that extra 20% damage, and this would be doing that extra 20% damage. Alternatively, you can make this do 25% damage, but only after manipulating it, and I don't think it's worth it just to for 5% more to only upgrade this instead of that. So it seems to be the better choice, honestly. Now we're using Phantom Blade Heroic, Breath of Fire. Basic is just a fewer, so you can use any skill like Etheric Ray, Phoenix Bulwark, the Tornado. Where did it go? Here. Or you can use Etheric Orb. It's a fewer skill. I barely find myself using it. In fact, you might as well disable this and use the 5 points to maybe upgrade something else. You might even consider upgrading that one, or maybe even to that one if you have the points. Although I don't think you can get this one unless you get more points. So then we get Etheric Storm Mastered. It's pretty great. It buffs you, it buffs other players. We get Blinding Light. It gives you health regeneration to you and anyone inside it. This one you can downgrade it if you need points, if you want to be doing that thing. If you want to do that thing, if you want to upgrade to this, downgrade this one to basic and remove this one, and that gives you 10 points, and then you can upgrade actually mastery to mastered. This one is our heroic skill. It's a great damage and survivability boost for the whole team. It also lets you recharge your cooldowns quicker, and it also gives you movement speed, and not just you, anyone in the field. And this damage reduction from here stacks with the damage reduction from here, and with the damage reduction from here, and if you're using padded armor with that damage reduction and with Hero of the Desert, and it's a great boost. And the damage from here stacks with the damage from here. It also stacks with the damage reduction and damage from the Relentless Sentinel if you're using it, so it's overall a very great synergy skills wise. I hope everything is clear with actives now. Duelist Chain Reaction, that's up to 400% crit damage. Arcane Secret Superior, 30% more damage, magical damage to burning enemies, and they will be burning while under this, and you can also burn with things like this, and this one also does the magical damage, so it's pretty great. Then we have something like this one for damage and damage reduction. This one's a little bit of everything, and this one is dealing magical damage increases fire and vice versa, which the Phantom Blade keeps proccing, and already mentioned about Action Mastery. And here's what I use for the God skills when using the counter spell based setup. Basically this point is optional, so let's spend it in the end. What you want is, first you want to go get the counter spell mastered. So counter spell mastered gives you not flat but regular standard damage based on how much counter attack damage you've got. And the points over here give you a total of 134% counter attack damage. And some of you might wonder, but won't it be better if I get this counter attack damage here and then downgrade this? No, it won't really be better. Even if you get extra counter attack damage, you can see what happens if we do this. If we do that, this one is 66% damage. Yeah, you do have 5 points, so maybe you can try and spend them, but you still won't be able to reach this one. This one requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 points. And unless you have 11 more points to get that extra counter attack damage, it's better to just ignore this extra 34% counter attack damage and go for this one, because this would give you 77 as opposed to the other option where this is 66 instead of 58. You gotta be wise how you spend the points, and I think this is the best way. So we get Counterspell Mastered, and then we get this 50% counter attack damage with anything on the way, which means we get this Arcane Manifestation Superior, which is 20% damage reduction for 15 seconds with a cooldown of 36, but with some of the procs, some of the stuff that can reduce our cooldowns, this could end up being lower. And when we're talking about procs, I'm gonna show you more what I mean in the previous segment, in the next segment with the skills. So there's something called Calming Incantations that can allow you to heal, but it's not 100% chance, it's probably around 25-30% chance, maybe even lower. So when you're using a skill with cooldown, you have a chance to heal all players for 10%, 8% or 6% HP. I don't suggest using this. So now, as I said, this leaves us with 1 point, and you can either get HP if you need it. For me that's only 6000, so I really don't think it's worth it. Or you can get some damage, which does seem to be okay, because I've only got 12%, now it's 15% here. So now that this is done, let's show you the skills and some of the things you might want to change in the skills segment for this setup. So here are the skills for the counter spell based setup. You can see the active skills have some changes. For example, I replaced the Arcane Storm, the Etheric Storm with Arcane Manifestation Superior, which allowed us to get 6 more points. Then I replaced the Step Between Worlds Superior with Mastered, because I think this one fits better the build. Then you can see here, instead of Fortress of Willpower Mastered, we've got Counterspell Mastered, and you can see Counterspell Mastered is 77% damage. So you're gonna say, but we're losing Arcane Secrets and we're losing the damage from Fortress of Willpower. Yes, but this was 30% and only for magical damage to burning enemies, and this one was 15%, so even at best that's 45%. But then some people would say, yeah, but you had more damage in the god skills. Yes, true, but this still ends up equaling kind of to enough of a damage boost to make up for the loss on damage we lost from god skills. So yeah, you're losing this, but this damage is all the time. You don't need to proc it, you don't need to only be doing it to burning enemies and only with magical damage. It works all the time and it's nice. It's definitely nice. So you're gonna wonder why I went for this one probably. Well, the fire damage is increased, each nearby burning enemy increases crit hit chance. That might be nice. If you want, you can replace it with something else. I mean, this can help you burn enemies, and this can also help you burn enemies. So if you don't want this, you can just do, instead of this 20% damage, you can get 20% damage from this thing here. That's something you can do. Consuming energy here, so players' energy cost and damage are increased. That would work okay if you want that damage to be to anything, not just fire, so that this can benefit from the damage, and then this can benefit from the damage in both fire and magic damage. Now next we've got things that I said about proccing. If you want to be proccing stuff like cooldown reduction, to be spamming this more often, consider Master of Equilibrium. If you feel like you want this one, for example, this is only for the cooldowns, and I think this is all you need. This is all you need, but if you think you want to regenerate energy, then get this one. Then another thing you can do is, if you need more survivability padded armor, here's what I took. I took Potion of Wrath, which would give us 50% counter attack damage, which means this would probably go up to like 100 damage, or even over 100 damage, because right now my counter attack is at 38,000. Using this potion should put my counter attack at at half of this, so I should get like 15 plus 4, I should get 19,000 more counterattack damage. So this should ideally go to like half of 77 more, so like 110 or so more total, not more but total 110 or so damage. So I'm gonna record some footage of me playing this, and throughout this video you should be seeing some of that footage. I did not record it before recording this, so I cannot comment how better the damage would have been, but I can comment at the end of the video in the gameplay segment when showing you the footage whether this turned out to be better or not. Okay, so let's quickly go through all the skills again. Phantom Blade heroic for damage. This one is interchangeable with any energy cost skill. This one for damage and survivability. This one regenerates your HP and your teammates and gives you damage. This one to just teleport and do a little bit of damage. This one great buff for you and anyone else in the team. Also cooldown reduction. This one great damage as long as you're casting cooldown skills, and you will be. Great damage here, extra more damage for this one from this one when using a potion. This one's a little bit of everything, and this one is something you could change, and this one is also more damage. So enough of this segment, let's show you the items. So for the items, the first things I would like to mention is the things you need, without talking about stats, just to tell you what you need. First you need the Defender of Ulthuan set. You need all 5 pieces of the Defender of Ulthuan set to get this bonus. Casting a magic spell reduces damage taken by all players for a few seconds. Casting a fire spell grants health to all players. This is why we've got a little bit of magic and a little bit of fire, and this is why this one counts as both fire and magic, so it's keeping a rotation between the two, so you're gonna be constantly proccing this bonus. Then you want a Blade of Azire, which gives you the Heroic Phantom Blade, which is a great source of damage. And then you might want a Relentless Sentinel, because, well, it's a great damage, you're static, you're a bunker with this build. Most of the time you would be grouping up enemies, then standing static and killing those enemies next to an elite, for example. So you want that 100% damage, 20% damage reduction, and 10% crit chance for you and your teammates while inside the field. You want a Phase Shift Amulet, because it's 50% damage to nearby enemies and also 10 damage reduction. I think this is the best in SWAT. You want ideally you would be using Ring of Dexterity. If you got a good Ring of Dexterity with cooldown reduction and crit chance and damage and HP, you would really want to be using it. I don't, so I'm using a Ring of Hotek, and I'm also using Crystalline Ring. This is not bad, because first a little bit of extra healing, a little bit of extra HP. This one's not bad either, because, well, at least it helps you heal up and get energy when performing crits. You could try and use Ring of Cain. If you have a good Ring of Cain, use it for extra damage, it's also worth it. What else do you want to maybe take? If you think you really don't need that much damage and need more damage reduction, which with this build I don't think you need that much damage reduction, especially not for the price of damage. Ring of Denial is good though, for new players who might wanna take it slow and not do much damage but at least survive. Ring of Denial is not bad. If you want cooldown reduction, Ring of Radiance is not bad, but again I would say just try and maybe get something like a Ring of Cain for damage and Old Ring of Dexterity for damage for Phantom Blade. If you think you can survive without a Crystalline Ring or without a Ring of Denial. Or you can even combine Ring of Denial with Ring of Dexterity. That means the Ring of Dexterity would only get 60% damage, because this one would negate 40, but you're still gonna get the bonuses from it. So there's many ways to do it, but my ideal choices would be Ring of Cain's Fury and a good, perfectly rolled Old Ring of Dexterity. If not perfectly rolled, at least cooldown, crit chance, and maybe damage, even if it doesn't have HP, would be a good thing to consider. So now let's talk about all the different roles you want in every piece of equipment. First of all, you want on the helmet cooldown reduction, number 1 priority, number 2 HP, then armor, the rest is fewers, but if you're going for the counter-attack damage, you want counter-attack damage as a very high priority, so probably equally high as the HP in this one. The same applies here except without the cooldown, so for the chest and the legs you want priority number 1 would be HP and counter-attack damage. The rest would be armor and then fewers. Then for the boots, priority number 1 HP and counter-attack damage, and again when I'm saying counter-attack damage, that's only for the counter-attack setup if you're using it. If you're not, then don't worry about it. So yeah, for the boots you might want to prioritize HP, then armor, and if you're going for counter-attack, get counter-attack and then get movement speed if you can as a third priority after that. Then for the gauntlets, since it's the only armor item that can give you damage and crit damage and damage over time, you want to get something with as high damage as possible. Even if it doesn't have crit damage, go and get the highest possible damage you can. A little bit of flat damage more would be better than a little bit of extra crit damage, especially knowing that this goes to like 40 something crit damage, but the flat goes to like 6000 on a green and even higher, even close to 7000 if you're lucky. So priority number 1 should be damage. If going for counter-attack, prioritize counter-attack as well, and then HP and armor. You don't care much about damage over time, not on this setup, and the rest is just fewers. So ideally you would have good damage, good HP, good counter-attack damage, good armor, and just fill up with whatever's left. Here on the amulet, another place where you can get good counter-attack damage, but the highest priority for amulets and rings would be get crit chance and get cooldown reduction. Those would be your top priorities. Together with damage, HP and counter-attack damage, you can get a perfectly rolled item. So ideally on this one, instead of armor and crit damage, I would have had cooldown reduction and counter-attack damage, and then I would have been happy. Armor is good, you can get armor only on the amulet, but it's not that high of a priority for this build, that's already so defensive. Here ideally you would have crit chance, cooldown reduction, again damage, HP, and counter-attack damage if using the counter-attack setup. You can see my gear. This is the gear I was using for the counter-attack recordings, and you can see I've got 1, 2, 3 items with counter-attack. That's a good number. This is a legacy item. 350 counter-attack damage is too low. Rings nowadays would give you around 800-900 counter-attack damage when they roll with it. So keep that in mind. You can get much more counter-attack damage from rings now. So ideally you would want counter-attack damage on everything if you're going for that setup. But yeah, keep that in mind. There's a lot of more you can get from those. Then Blade of Desire, since it cannot grant you crit chance, but it grants you higher crit damage, maybe the crit damage is a little higher on the priority list, but you still want priority number 1 damage and cooldown reduction on this one. Priority number 2 would be HP and then maybe crit damage, because this one goes higher than the staff, and then get things like counter-attack damage and maybe armor piercing. So this one overall is pretty perfectly rolled for a counter-attack damage build, but this is a legacy item, so it's giving me less counter-attack damage than I can actually get nowadays. A good equipped counter-attack damage build would have around over 100% damage on counter spell if everything is rolled with counter-attack damage. So on the Relentless Sentinel, again you would want the exact same
If you wanna
stats
get
here, but
notified
instead of
for
crit
more
damage, you're
content about
prioritizing
this
crit
game
chance
or
because
others
this can
like
get
it, or
So you
various
want
different
things like
types of
this, cooldown and crit
RPGs, say
chance,
RPGs,
highest
tactical
priorities.
RPGs, all sorts of
Then you
RPGs,
have
or
HP and
other types of
damage
looters.
being a little higher priority
You
than
could subscribe
HP.
to my channel, get
And that brings you
that
to
bell
4,
button
and you've
clicked
got
to
2
not miss
more.
those
And
notifications.
for those 2
Thanks
more, I
again for
would
watching
suggest
the
going
video,
for
folks.
armor piercing and
Keep it
counter
cool,
attack damage.
and
Probably would be
until
the best
next
choice,
time,
even if you
goodbye.
ignore the crit damage. If not armor piercing, then crit damage is fine, but you would want cooldown, crit chance, damage, HP, counter attack damage, and fewer of armor piercing or crit damage. That should kind of sort things out. So again, let's mention about my counter attack damage not being properly set up. I only have one piece with counter attack damage, 2 pieces, 3 pieces with built-in 1500. The rest is legacy items with either no counter attack or very low counter attack. Then 1 thing, 2 things, 3 things, 4 things blessed with counter attack damage. I suggest do not bless more than 4 things for counter attack damage. Because if you go overboard with it, you're not gonna have a good base to buff. The way this skill works is it's increasing your damage base by a percentage. So you want a good flat damage base. Meaning you want 6 pieces blessed with flat damage like this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and those 2. You want that flat damage, and then you want the counter attack damage on the rest. Let's show you how to do them. So for example, you want counter attack damage. Boom, you do this: green, blue, green, green, blue, green, links everywhere, and a god token. This gives you up to 620 armor, up to 8000 HP, up to 2500 damage. Now if you want HP and damage combo, this is the one that gives you the least amount of damage, the most amount of HP. For new players, maybe this is better if you're having trouble surviving, if you just need a little bit more HP for the price of damage, you can do that. Then you have a more balanced version, this one. This one's up to 4060 damage, 6000 HP. And then when you get enough HP and you think, okay, I've got enough HP, I want a little bit more damage, then you do it that way. Then you have red, green, red, red, green, red, linked god token, and that's 4480 damage, 4000 HP. Pretty strong, pretty good, and I think that's pretty much it about the gear. You're probably noticing I'm using this one on my damage setups, but this one is actually a balanced one with 3 green, 3 red. This one's 4 red, this one is 4 red, and this one is 4 red. So I've only got one with a little bit more HP. So if you're not using the counter attack, you're just using this one. Or the other versions of the red and green based on your gear, what you need to fill. So hopefully everything was clear, hope you enjoyed this. Now let's show you some more gameplay of the build. And here we are at the segment where I show you a little bit more gameplay of the build, and as I normally like to do when I split the counter spell and arcane secret setups, I'm showing you the footage for both of those in split screen. So enjoy it, hope you really like the split screen. I've tried to include only the important part and cut the things where there's not much happening, when there's no damage numbers or enemies to see much. So hopefully this lets you kind of get a better idea of how one build clears another build clears, how quickly one build kills the boss, how quickly the other build kills the boss. Unfortunately, it wasn't exactly the same types of enemies I was fighting, but at the end both maps gave me a Chaos Throw, which seems to be the toughest one to deal with and a good test for a build. You're seeing the numbers, they're not that different, so I guess it just matters on your items. If you've got more counter attack damage in your items, you might as well go for counter spell. Or you might want to just stick to arcane secrets if you're not sure whether you're gonna enjoy it. It's also a matter of preference. When you're playing in a team, I think it's better to stick to arcane secrets, because that storm, the etheric storm, can buff your teammates' damage. Whereas when you're not using the etheric storm, you're only buffing your own damage, or more like, let's say, you're buffing your own damage reduction with the other god skill, the arcane manifestation. So you kind of need to figure out for yourself what works best for you. I still think the arcane secrets is the better when in co-op, but the other one is better when solo. So I'd say keep experimenting and testing and figuring out which one you like better, and feel free to also share with me and anyone else watching the video which setup works better for you. Leave a comment in the comment section, and I would be happy to compare notes with you and see what else you might wanna consider. If you are changing some of the skills and passives, let me know what you're using as well. I'm always happy to see how you're making my builds your own by slightly modifying them or majorly modifying them. I hope it was helpful. I hope you really enjoyed that type of presentation when I'm showing it in split screen. If you wanna get notified for more content about this game or others like it, or various different types of RPGs, say RPGs, tactical RPGs, all sorts of RPGs, or other types of wooters, you could subscribe to my channel, get that bell button clicked to not miss those notifications. Thanks again for watching the video, folks. Keep it cool, and until next time, goodbye.